Good evening, Cowboys Nation, and welcome to another Saturday edition of All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. So, last week we had talked about the ways that Dallas could take advantage of the Saints' inexperienced offensive line. Um, make sure you don't get beat deep by Rashid Shaheed. Um, Move Micah Parsons around, injured left tackle, not great right tackle, um, limit Alvin Kamara, try to run the ball a little better. Um, just all the things that we talked about, Dallas did none of them, which is quite on par with how, expectations of them have been. Um, they gave you a little bit of hope in week one against the Browns, and I'll be the first to admit it. I definitely felt a little bit better about the outlook for the team and thought, okay, maybe they can, maybe for the first time in a few years, this defense will be able to make up for the offense's, shortcomings every now and then. But it was very, very wrong. Very, very wrong. But let's kind of break that down and then get into the Ravens game, which is taking place tomorrow at 4:25 Eastern. So yeah, let's jump right on in. So just some news. Mozzie, Diggs, and Lamb should play, and Jordan Phillips is on the IR with a wrist injury. That was definitely quite the interesting few hours on Twitter about, is it a, Yankees fans, as I am one, we have this thing called a phantom IL. Well, maybe it's just a baseball term, but I know a lot of Yankees fans use it when a player is not playing all that well. You put him on there as like a fake injury just to get him off the team without releasing him. So that's what happened with Jordan Phillips, basically. So Brian Broaddus talked about how there'll probably be some like settlement where he'll get a few game checks and then get cut. So I'm curious to see what happens because now they did bring back Carl Davis off of the Washington Commanders practice squad. So now you have Linval, Osa, Mozzie if healthy, and Carl Davis. So an uninspiring um, nose tackle or one tech and three tech. Very, very uninspiring. But let's get right into this Saints loss and try to get rid of all the negatives before we start talking about maybe some positives for against the Ravens. So the Cowboys are the only team to allow 44 points in consecutive home games. So Jerry, put a banner please up in the rafters that we have that. It's I'm sure that Jerry's very, very proud of that one. Just some stats. Their second TFL came with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and it took until 12 minutes and 4 seconds left in the fourth quarter for the Cowboys to stop the Saints from scoring. So, just those two things, if you have Patrick Mahomes on offense, these are just things that you're going to expect to lose when you're not able to stop any type of offense. So now let's, why did Dallas lose? So according to PFF, which I know that the grades are people either love them or hate them, but I'm just going to give them as a basis. So the top, the bottom four lowest PFF grades for interior D linemen, the Cowboys have three of the four worst. So the Mozzie with a 28.9, Jordan Phillips with a 29.6, and Linval with a 31.4. And these are graded out of 100. So your interior D line, even I saw on the live, and I don't have access to the all 22 or anything like that, but you know, the all of these players, like all the interiors getting pushed off the line several yards back. And my favorite play was the one where he threw a touchdown to or Derek Carr threw a touchdown to Foster Moreau, and it was called back. If you look at the live copy, Jordan Phillips, he, um, gets beat by an offensive lineman, and instead of going after Derek Carr, just decks the offensive linemen. So that was just kind of a really great summary of how the game was going. Um, Teams have averaged 4.9 yards per carry against Dallas, so that's definitely something that they're gonna have to fix. And I feel like since 2018, where the Cowboys got ran all over the field by CJ Anderson, Dallas has never really been able to stop the run all that well. And that's something that fans wanted, 2 years ago, or yeah, 2 years ago when they traded for Jonathan Hankins. It was a little bit better, but then you failed to re-sign him, and the Seattle Seahawks and Dallas offered the same contract, and he decided to go to Seattle. So then you expect Mozzie and Osa to really be the only guys on the interior, and then a lot of people had expected Linval to be on the team at some point in time because of his experience with Zimmer, but Linval's not playing all that well. And Jordan Phillips, had a great game last year against Dallas and Buffalo, but as of right now, he's showing why he was the third string defensive tackle on the Giants and why they wanted to get rid of him. Also, the Cowboys are fifth lowest in big plays. They have big play, a rush of 10 yards or plus, or a reception of 20 yards or plus. And the Cowboys have three big plays running the ball and four big plays passing the ball. So those are just some things, last year, weeks 1 through 7 before the bye, Dallas was not very good offensively. And us as a fan base thought that, you'd be able to pick up right from the last game of the regular season and start off hot. But that's not what we've seen. And I think now it's the point where we're like, never run the ball again because it's a waste of a down. But Jerry, in his infinite wisdom, wants more attempts. So things, unless he's just saying that to say it, things could get rather ugly very quickly. Rushing game, talking about that. So the longest run of the season is a 12-yard carry by Lamb, which was in week 1. Zeke is, the only guy with a touchdown, 3.5 yards per carry. Rico, 3.7 yards per carry. Deuce is 3 yards per carry. And Zeke has 16 attempts, Rico 15, Deuce 5. So very uninspiring run game. According to John Owning, who works for PFF, great guy to follow on Twitter. They rank 24th in success rate when running the ball, but see 8+ man boxes, the second fewest, and they have the 5th worst success rate when rushing against a light box, less than 7 defenders. So they can't run, light boxes. And there's a stat by NetGen Sports, something like that, where they look at, based off your offensive line and the holes that they create, how your running back should be averaging, how many yards. And Dallas is significantly lower than what they should be averaging. So the offensive line play is getting better every week, and that's what happens when you don't, week 1 of training camp, the fans wanted Tyler Guyton on a left tackle and BB at center because we didn't think that Brock Hoffman had, earned that spot by any means. But it took an Adoga injury to really get Guyton playing left tackle, and it took BB several weeks of learning how to snap. So there's not really a lot of, like, they're not gelled yet. So it's gonna take a few weeks for them to, really get comfortable, which is unfortunate. But as the worst situation possible would be as we get closer to the end of the season, the offensive line is making all these holes, and the running backs can't do anything. And especially when Dalvin Cook and Malik Davis are, your kind of safety net right now on the practice squad, and Jerry has no desire to trade for one. It's like I said, it's going to be a very long season. And also the Kubiak play calling, and I talked about this in the podcast last week about him being a part of the Shanahan tree. And Saints used motion on 74% of their plays, and on those plays with motion, 9.5 yards per play and a 61.5% success rate. So In years past, Dallas has not been able to stop motion or not been able to not be negatively impacted by motion, and we all thought that Zimmer was gonna be able to come in and fix it, but it looks like that regardless of what Zimmer does, and obviously the coaches can be better. There's always room for improvement with coaches, but it looks like the players are not going to be, um, they're not good enough to make up, or they're not good enough to be able to play well in Zimmer's scheme. And even last week, Overshown had a great week 1, and we all thought that Overshown was gonna be playing more in week 2, but Overshown did have some injuries in training camp, and then this week it came out, or we knew, I guess due to Brian brought us talking about it in training camp, and then the Cowboys basically telling us this past week, in weeks 1 through 2, on nickel defenses, Kendricks and Overshown were your linebackers. And in base, it was Kendricks, Clark, and Marist. And Overshown did say a few days ago that he is now in base. So we should be faster on those plays, on those defensive packages. So, maybe, hopefully, this loss can kind of be a opportunity for growth. Now, in years past, Dallas doesn't really get a beating this bad until it's later in the season, so there's more hope going into it. But now that it's happened this early, you know, no one really knows what's going to happen. They can either, people have called Dallas a soft team, so they can either crumble due to this, or this is going to allow them to get better and to, be underdogs and perform well. Because when expectations are low, they do well, and expectations are high, that's kind of when they let the moment become too big for them. But here is the best question. At what point did I realize that the Cowboys lost the game? So I hope that a lot of us have the similar answer to this, but at one point in the game, Dak was 13 for 16, 144 yards, and 1 touchdown. Great game. The score was 28-13. Going into the second half, or sorry, at the end of the second quarter, and Dallas was on their own 49-yard line with 120 left in the first half, and being down 15, you had the opportunity to get 7 and get the ball at half and be up 29. No, sorry, 20. You had the opportunity to be down 28-27. And what happens? Dak throws a in-breaking route to Jalen Brooks. He falls down, intercepted. And the funny part was that Tom Brady was like, "I wouldn't throw to him again," and Dak threw right back to him right after. So, going into the year with going or training camp with CeeDee Lamb not playing, due to contract stuff, we were like, okay, Tolbert, Brooks, hopefully Flournoy, Cooks, let them all, you know, be used more in training camp, and that it'll be good for them in the season. But Tolbert has not really shown you much. Brooks definitely hasn't. So unless Ryan Flournoy becomes your number 2 and a real weapon, you're gonna have to make a trade at several positions, but especially wide receiver, or you're not trying to win. Dallas, even with Dak and Lamb, will win you several games, and you could attempt to make the playoffs with just them two. If the defense doesn't do anything, it doesn't do anything positive for you, I have confidence that Dak and Lamb will be able to win you some game just in a shootout. But this game was not one of those against the Saints. But a lot of people, yeah, I don't know what Dallas is gonna do with the offense. There are a lot of holes that kind of all fans knew, and 2 really big holes that we knew were the running game and stopping the run. And Dallas has been able to do They weren't really able to run the ball that well week 1. They stopped the run week 1. They could not do either this past week. So a lot of people have been talking about which would you rather the run defense or the run game be successful? And I don't have to say the run game. The run D, or I'll say the run game because you are putting a lot on a quarterback when he only has one true option. Jake Ferguson is going to be back this week, so now you're going to have two. But if there's no run game, boxes are going to be light, more guys in coverage. You're going to make things much more difficult for your quarterback than they need to be. So hopefully, Dowdle give him more reps than Zeke. Hopefully if Dowdle gets the most reps, you may have more success, but neither of these 3 running backs have shown the ability to really have success. So hopefully they'll make a trade, or hopefully Dalvin Cook gets brought up, and hopefully he has something, or Malik Davis. But as of right now, the run game, Dallas has not been able to stop the run in the past, and they've been able to have success. But Dallas, this is the first time in a while where they have not been able to run the ball at all. And their O-line's been good run game wise, but have not been able to do anything about it. So, speaking about all these issues on their team, what's one part that I'd want, what's one thing I want to improve the defense? Have to trade for a defensive tackle. Unless Carl Davis is, the best defensive tackle in the league or one of them, it's going to be difficult to do anything because when your defensive tackles are getting pushed off line of scrimmage and your linebackers can't really do anything because there aren't clear avenues for them to get to the running back, and then you're asking your edges to do more, and it just poor defensive tackle play leads to a lot of issues. And even look at the Chiefs in the years past when they've had Chris Jones. Their defenses in the years past, not this year, but their defense in the years past have kind of been lackluster. But Chris Jones was amazing and made that defense a lot better. So hopefully Dallas can get a defensive tackle. And if not, like I said, you hope Mozzie turns into something or, shows why he was taken in the first round. But he's left a lot to be desired. And Osa can only do so much. He's an undersized 3-tech. Good, but you're asking him to do a lot if he has to play a lot of these snaps. And now with Jordan Phillips being out for 4 weeks at least, I think things can get really ugly, especially when you play teams like the Ravens who run the ball really well. Teams like the Eagles run the ball really well. The Giants, Devin Singletary, they could run on you. Like every team, if Dallas does not figure out how to stop the run this week against the Ravens, things could get incredibly difficult and ugly for them. And what's one thing to improve for Dallas? Either, give Rico Dowdle the keys and just see what he can give you. Make him the bell cow and see what he can give you, or trade for another wide receiver. Because if the run game can't do anything, you might as well trade for a wide receiver. Amari Cooperman thrown out there, which would be kind of cool. Devontae Adams, Courtland Sutton. Get Courtland Sutton, get someone so that if you're gonna throw the ball 60 times a game, at least you'll know that Lamb doesn't have to catch 55 of them. At least I don't have to know that Lamb and Ferguson catch the majority of them. You can get someone else because, last week Lamb was taken away and no one really showed up. I know that Tolbert had the best game of his career statistically, but it wasn't like they weren't difference makers. The catches, they're not difference making catches. Tolbert, third round pick out of South Alabama. I was high on him. I thought, I guess I'm high on every draft pick. He's a Cowboy, and then I go down with the ship basically. So I'm going down with the ship on Tolbert and Mozzie. Hopefully they can show something, but out of all these guys, at least Schoonmaker showed you something yesterday, or sorry, last week. He showed you that he can catch a ball. He's very slow, but he can do what he's asked. So I guess that's one of the positive takeaways from the game. But the game was awful, and by all, you know, it. I didn't think that it was as bad as the Packers game in the playoffs because at least the offense played well until the wheels fell off. Like at least like they played well until Brooks just fell. And then after that I was like, I don't care what happens. Dak doing an interception, forcing it to Lamb, I don't care. It's unfortunate like him to make a better read than that, but the game was already over. No one played well. Brandon Aubrey did though, so Brandon Aubrey might be the best player on this team at this point in time. Moving on to the Ravens, the Ravens average the most yards per game on offense, and defensively, the last 2 weeks they've averaged the most passing yards thrown against them, and they've averaged the lowest rushing yards against them, which is good because Dallas cannot run the ball and Dallas can hopefully throw the ball well. So, the Ravens defense plays into the strengths of the Cowboys offense because one, they can't run the ball, so they can stop it all they want. And second of all, they can't stop the pass. And if Dallas and Mike McCarthy allows Dak to kind of play like he was able to in the second half of last season, where they gave him the keys and this run game nonsense was over, and they just stopped attempting to do it, then I think that there's going to be more success. But with all the talk of the want to run the ball more, I think that it can get pretty ugly pretty quickly, especially, if Dallas doesn't score early, then I think that, if Dallas doesn't score early, then this game is going to be over very quickly. But Ravens are 0-2, Cowboys are 1-1. Who needs a win more? Now, the Ravens play the Bills and the Bengals after Dallas, so if they don't win, they're going to be they're probably going to be 0-5, and then that's not something you can recover from. And Dallas, if they don't stop the run, like I said earlier, going to be in for a long season. But since 2021, the Mike McCarthy era, they are 12-2 following a loss. So, low expectations. They really show up. So, hopefully that's something. What does Dallas need to do to secure the victory this Sunday? DT need to do their job, unlike last week. Linebackers fill the holes, and Overshown needs to spy Lamar. I know that they talked about Micah doing it, but let Micah play, on obvious passing downs, let him rush the passer. On run downs, he can play linebacker. I don't care. But I think that Overshown needs to spy him because, like we saw week 1, he is the fastest to the ball on that one sack of Deshaun Watson. But like I said earlier, with guys coming out the practice squad, with Tolbert not really showing much and neither Brooks, I would like to see Ryan Flournoy be activated. I doubt he will be, but at some point you need to see what he can do because he was, he had a lot of success in preseason, and hopefully he will be able to, come up and play and be your second best wide receiver. But it's high expectations, but hopefully he'll have the ability to do that if given the chance. I also think that Brooks should be. I know that he has like an injury lingering this week, but hopefully he sits and Flournoy is brought up. And also, like I said before, Jerry made some comments about Dalvin Cook not being activated, and they're content with the running back room. I think that if Dallas can't run the ball this week, then if Cooks is not played this week, then Cook need to play against the Giants because the Giants, thankfully, you have a lot more talent than they do, so you can try some things. You can see what Dalvin Cook can give you. You can see if you can run the ball even a little bit against Dexter Lawrence Dexter Lawrence, sorry, Brian Burns, and that other and Kayvon Thibodeau. Hopefully, if this week I'm not expecting them to run the ball, but hopefully next week they'll be able to have some more success. And when you're looking at the Ravens offense, it's either Derrick Henry gets the ball to run, or it's a lot of Zay Flowers, a lot of the tight ends, or run. And I am, most worried about Lamar running because Dallas has never really been good, never really succeeded against teams with a rushing quarterback, and also Zay Flowers because he's agile, quick, and Dallas was not really able to tackle all that well last week. So Zay Flowers, both of them should have success against this defense. I don't think that Dallas's defense will be able to stop them much, if at all, which is sad. And I hope they prove me wrong, but they haven't really given me a lot of confidence in their ability to stop them. But and moving on to Derrick Henry, he's rushed the ball 31 times for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that he has the ability to have a Kamara-like game, if not better. Dallas's run defense allows these guys who kind of either start off slow or in the later ends of their career just come here and have career games. Aaron Jones several times, Kamara several times, Derrick Henry, CJ Anderson in 2018. It would be hilarious if Dallas plays Mulligans around this week because that's the most Cowboy thing for them to stink last week. Expectation to be super low and them have a great game. But I do not expect them to play well on defense. And for my score prediction, I have Dallas losing 35-17. Maybe, a late game touchdown to make it 35-17. But I think that Dallas's offense is gonna start off so like that they normally do. And the Ravens are gonna be able to feed off that. And there's gonna be, no pressure from the Cowboys defense to be able to stop them. So I think they can really get whatever they want, score early, score often. And it's gonna be a very long game for Dallas. But in honor of Ray not being here, I don't know what Ray thought for the score prediction. I guess we'll have to comment on that when he's here next week. But break from reality. Speaking of Zay Flowers, I recently traded him in fantasy for David Montgomery. I needed a running back, and I traded Zay Flowers, David Montgomery. So hopefully Zay Flowers does not go off this week, and hopefully David Montgomery gets 2 touchdowns. And also University of Texas, Hook'em. There you go. Not ranked number 1 in the country. They play ULM this week, and then OU, and then Georgia. So a great 3-week stretch to see. Hopefully UT and Georgia are ranked 1 and 2 by the time that game comes, because it's probably going to be one of the biggest games in the last few years of UT program. But that's all. Ray would probably talk about something for Baylor. So yeah, go Bears. But yeah, I think that if like I've said several times, if Dallas does not stop the run, be more creative offensively, get CeeDee Lamb open often, and do things to be able to beat up on the Ravens' weaknesses, I think it'll be a long game. And if they don't, like I said, they don't figure this out quickly, then I think that the core is not going anywhere. But what about Zimmer? What about Mike McCarthy? What about all I want to keep is Al Harris. He can stay, but what direction do the Cowboys go in? Do they get a Brian? Do they get a Bill Belichick? Do they get a Vrabel? Do they get a young guy out of college? Do they get a guy from the Mike Shanahan tree? What do they do? And I'm excited for that. Um, their biggest needs in the draft, I would say right now, are a running back. They got the guy at Boise State would be great. I know Ollie Gordon has been talked about a lot, but who knows? A running back, a wide receiver, and a defensive tackle. If you can get those three positions in high draft slots, hopefully hopefully next year. But yeah, if they don't get this figured out quickly, it's gonna be a long year, and hopefully that comes with a good draft pick. But thank you all for listening. I know that whenever it's just me solo, these go a little bit quicker and a lot at once. So looking forward to having Ray back with us next week or this week, and we're gonna have the panel on. So Mario, Mike Tag, and Kelly K9. It's gonna be exciting. It's probably some of the funnest, some of the most fun I've had on this podcast. Just being able to talk with them and pick their brain on the Cowboys and what exactly they can do to not be awful. But that's all I have. Hopefully Dallas is 2-1, but I have them going 1-2 into the Giants on Thursday Night Football, which I am hoping to be able to go. I'm thinking about buy tickets to go to that game, so that'll be fun. But thank you, Cowboys Nation. It's gonna be a great week. It's gonna be a great week and a great season. But at least Ray and I can come on here and kind of complain for 40 minutes. But that's all I got. Go Cowboys. See y'all next week.